I'm Amy Sherman-Palladino, and you're listening to In Her Words.
Everyone has a story. Welcome to In Her Words, a podcast from women in entertainment where female creatives and allies share their stories in their own words.
This is a dedicated space centered on how to harness creativity for inspiring and impactful projects in the ever-changing landscape of entertainment.
I'm Renee Rossi.
I'm Gretchen McCourt.
And this is In Her Words.
Okay, you guys, we have the ultimate Renee and Gretchen episode. Amy Sherman-Palladino is on the podcast. Anyone who knows us knows we are Gilmore and Maisel girls to the core, and we are over the moon to meet Amy and talk about these iconic shows and characters and gush on Étoile and how beautiful this new show is. Amy is charming and funny and smart, and she shares her unique career insights from her start on Roseanne and how it's really shaped everything that she does. We know you're going to love listening to Amy as much as we love talking to her. Enjoy.
How are you?
Good. Where are you in the world, Amy? Are you traveling?
No, I'm at home. I'm in Brooklyn.
Oh, good. That's a nice break.
Yeah.
Are you faring the heat well? I think it's like 90 right now.
It's awful here today. It's just
Summer is definitively here.
Ew.
It's literally the worst thing ever. I'm bad in the heat anyhow, so it's a lot of whining. So much whining. I'm just whining constantly.
Well,
where are you guys?
I'm in New Jersey, actually.
So you're miserable too.
I am.
Excellent.
I'm with you. I'm in like the heat swamp with you.
Ew, you guys, yeah. I'm in Kansas City, and we're actually like 72 today, and it doesn't happen very often, so we're going to enjoy it for a hot minute. Or actually,
do not rub it in. Do not rub it in.
we're supposed to be like out of unseasonably hot starting Sunday, so I'll be right there sweating with you.
Oh God. All right.
Amy, we are huge fans. Yeah. You don't even want to know the geeky text going back and forth between us last night.
Like, you must have this all the time, that like you are the girl crush of like the entertainment industry, but we have bonded with our daughters over your series. I'm in the middle of Maisel with my daughter. It's like it's amazing. So you've created these wonderful worlds. We just have we're just such huge fans.
Oh, it's so nice. It's very nice to hear. It's very lovely. I never get tired of hearing it. Never.
Oh, good. And we also have to, we'd be remiss if we didn't tell you about our huge Luke Kirby crushes too. So
my God.
We just have to get that out there.
Oh.
We love him. We love him so much, and so excited to see him in Étoile so much.
He's so delicious. And so lovely. He's such a lovely boy too. He's just an angel. He's an angel. What can I say? I'd love to tell you he's a schmuck, but he's not.
So, Amy, we have so many people in our community that are, that are just beginning in their career, that are, looking to change careers. So we look to people like yourself for advice and for just kind of their story. So what we love to start out with is just really telling us kind of your origin story and how how you got to writing, directing, producing, and the path that you took. People love to hear these twisty turny paths that get us where we are today.
Okay, well, my path is a little weird, and sometimes I just have to preface by saying it's not usually like this, but I was a dancer, and I was supposed to be a dancer. And I actually was dancing right up until I got my first writing job. I never intended to be a writer. I never set out to be a writer. I still don't know if I've come to terms with being a writer. I'm not sure this is the right path still, but I took some improv classes, and I made a friend in class, and she really wanted to be a writer. And so she said, well, why don't we write some spec scripts together? And I'm like, all right. We were both out of work, and it didn't matter. And we just sat there and drank tea and ate ding dongs and wrote a couple of spec scripts, one of them being a Roseanne spec script, just for the hell of it. And you guys probably don't have this, and I'm not even sure if it exists in LA anymore, but at the time there was a thing called comedy traffic school. And
Yes.
and she taught comedy traffic school. And so at the beginning of every session, she would go around and ask everybody, like, what their name is, what felony they committed, and what their job was. And because of where she was teaching, like, everybody there was either like an
Mm-hmm.
agent or a studio or like, so God love Jennifer. She's just a very, very determined young lady, and she would basically force our scripts on every single person who she thought maybe could possibly help us. And I remember saying to her, like, Jennifer, you can't do that. Like, they're going to fire you eventually, because I don't think you're supposed to use this to get our spec scripts read. I don't actually think that's why they're paying you. She's like, it doesn't matter. So there was an executive from a company that doesn't exist anymore called Lorimar. And she forced him to take our script, and he actually read them, which is surprising to me because I just assumed everybody would just throw them out the minute they left the room. But he read them, and he called her the next and like read them over the weekend, called her on Monday and said, so I've called CAA, ICM, William Morris, and I've set meetings for you guys. And we're like, okay, that's weird and fast, but sure. And then, so in the time that it took to set the agency meetings, I decided, well, if we're going to really try and do this, I should learn how to, like, I don't know, use a computer, because I had no idea how to, like, use a word processor. Like, this was not supposed to be my life. So at UCLA, I took one of those night, like, sitcom writing class. It was just ridiculous. It was insane. But a very lovely guy taught it, and I wish I could remember his name. Is Glenn something, whatever. And he was working on a show at the time that Paul Haggis Crash, and he was running, and it was starring Valerie Harper, and it was called City. And he said, because back in the old days, they used to give out freelance scripts, so you could come in and pitch to any show even if you weren't on staff, and every show was supposed to buy at least 2 freelance scripts, and the whole point was to give young writers a chance to break in. And then if they bought your script, you got to sit in the room while everyone worked on it, and you got to, like, be at the taping, so you got to sort of learn the process even though you weren't on staff yet at the moment. They don't do that anymore, and they should. But he said, why don't you guys come in and pitch a bunch of ideas? So, like, I mean, we spent, like, it was ridiculous. We spent, like, days coming up with, like, just the worst ideas ever. There was something like once a month, one of the women, when she gets her period, she's psychic. I mean, it was just like the stupidest ideas ever in the history of stupid ideas. But we went in there and we pitched, like, I don't know, like 12 ideas. And at the end of it, Paul Haggis just sort of sat there beat, and then he said, okay, look, if you can take this pencil and throw it up and get it to stick in the ceiling, I will hire you.
What?
What?
It was one of those, like, it's one of those square, like, popcorny kind of ceilings that's sort
Yeah.
of spongy. And we're like, I'm sorry, what? He goes, yeah. So if you can get the pencils to stick in the ceiling, I will hire you. So we spent 45 minutes trying to get pencils to stick in the ceiling. And finally, I think no one could take it anymore. He's like, and he goes, it's fine, never mind. Well, I'll just hire you. So we actually we sold one of these ridiculous ideas. And so by the time we got in for the agency meetings, we'd literally already gotten ourselves a job. So we walked into all these meetings with these agents, and we said, by the way, we're already working. Ha ha ha. Uh, and so we had our pick of agents, and we signed with William Morris, and then they sent us out on a few meetings, and then we got Roseanne. So, like, literally from the time we decided to sit down and start writing spec scripts with the ding dongs and the tea, to the time we got staffed, it was 6 months. It was a very short
Wow.
time, which is why I say it doesn't usually happen like
Yeah.
that. but it was just a weird, and it was just that time. It was like, you need a little bit of luck. Everybody
Yeah.
needs a little bit of luck. So, you know, Roseanne had just it was the third year of Roseanne. The first 2 years were brilliant but chaotic, and then she had fired the whole staff. And so they brought in a whole new staff the third year, and they had no women, and they needed someone to write for the girls. They had two teenage girls, so they needed someone like close-ish to teenage years, and they, someone who's actually been to a gynecologist. It's like, we need one of those because we don't know. So we got hired on Roseanne, and I stayed there 4 years. She stayed there 2. We were only partners a year because I'm a very much a only child. My office, my phone, don't really sharing what? No.
Don't
So but
touch
we're
my
still
stuff.
friends. But we're still friends. So she left and she went to another show, and I stayed in Roseanne for like another couple of years. But that's my origin story.
And how did you make the leap to Gilmore? What was
Well,
that journey like?
well, then after being on what was at the time the top rated sitcom,
Yeah.
and
You had a couple other pieces in there too.
yeah, because when you
Yeah.
start, it was amazing that was my first job, because it really taught me storytelling. Because the credo on Roseanne was, you make the small big and the big small. So it wasn't about a big event happening. It was, Darlene gets her period. Becky farts in class. I mean, they were like really, like they were small. They were small story things, but they were like, but those became the big things in real life. And so it was wonderful training. And I had the Bob Meyer was running the show the first 2 years. And he was amazing, and he really taught me like what a great showrunner is. And so I had good models. But because the show was so popular, and because it had been so chaotic the first couple years, and now Roseanne wielded so much power, she had banned the studio and the network from the stage. So they did not come to table reads. They did not give notes.
Wow.
They could come to the tapings, but they had to stay up in the green room, and there was no like sending notes down. Like that
Oh,
was like a
wow.
non. So I actually never really learned what studio and network people, what their function was for the entire first 4 years of my career, until I left Roseanne and went to another show, which was of course not nearly as good. So the first table read was was a bad read. And so I'm gathering up all my stuff, because clearly we have a long rewrite ahead of us, and no one else is moving from the table. And I'm like, why are we not? We've got a lot of work to do. Like, guys, let's go. And they're like, no, we have to we have to get notes. And I'm like, from who? And they're like, from these people. And they're pointing to like 12 people sitting around the table, all in a similar version of the same suit. And I'm like, well, who are they? And they're like, well, that's the studio and the network. Like they get to give notes now. And I was absolutely gobsmacked. The concept of like the studio and the network giving notes was absolutely completely alien to me. And I'm like, well, that seems crazy. We've got a lot of work to do. We're gonna sit here for an hour and listen to these people, but okay. And so like that was my first kind of bucket of cold water of what the business really was. So I trained in a cocoon. I trained in a
Yeah.
cocoon that was really about the actual work and the actual story and and for the first couple of years, Roseanne, it's when Roseanne and Tom had just sort of gotten together. So Roseanne was sort of like very happy, and she as long as the staff was functioning, she was fine. And it got worse later when they split up, and things got a little crazy. Then she realized, oh, I can torture everybody if I want. So but the first couple of years, that's her head was just like, she wanted to come and do a fun show and then go off and do her thing. So it was really great. So it was I actually, in a weird way, I sort of had to start all over again, because I had to learn now how the real process worked, the process of working on a not good show, the process of um not working with great showrunners, or having studio and network an incredible amount of interference, that really didn't make the process any better. So it was very, very strange. And so I worked on and I learned very quickly once I left Roseanne that I was not meant to be on a staff. If I could
Interesting.
not hold a pencil and fix the problem, it was simply too frustrating for me, because you would sit in a room and you'd be like, I know how to fix this. I know I'm lower down on the totem pole, but I know how to fix this. And it was
Yeah.
just a very frustrating thing. It was just for my, and this is, by the way, this was a time when you could make a fabulous living just being on a staff. Like, you staff writers got, big overall deals, and you never had to really create a show or even necessarily run a show to make really good money and, send your kids to fancy schools and live in, Pacific Palisades, although hindsight 2020, and it was when sitcom was king. But for me, it was like I didn't really care about the finance side of it. I if I couldn't make the project better, I just didn't know why I was sitting in this room with a bunch of people who seemed to not care about that as much, which, may have been incredibly stupid and arrogant of me, because they probably cared just as much as I did, except they understood how shit worked, and I
Yeah.
just didn't. So, so I worked on a few gigs like that, and then they hired me to run Veronica's Closet, which was an absolutely soul-sucking, horrible, it
Oh, wow.
really was a terrible, terrible, terrible experience. And it's interesting, because when all, like, the Maisel came about at the time of Me Too, and
Yeah.
and all the women were like, if you've got a penis, you're bad. And it's sort of like, all I can say is, in my career, the people who have helped me have been men. It has not been women. And
Interesting.
I think that is hopefully it's changing a little bit more. I'm not sure if it is. Uh, I, I've tried, and my friends have tried. We're trying to make it uh, men pull each other up and women don't necessarily pull each other up. So, I got into this situation on the show, and it was just such a dreadful experience, and such sort of I'd literally go home crying every night, and my husband would be like, you have to quit this job. Like, you literally can't come home every night crying. Like, I can't take it anymore. And
Yeah.
I'm like, but I can't, but I'm not a quitter. That's not what I do. I'm running the show. What am I, if that's, I like Kirsty. I like Kathy and Jimmy. I think they're super talented. I think I'm getting to work with these really terrific actors who are really funny and really brilliant. And it was the other bullshit, and the people who were sort of controlling the show, who were making me sigh and cry a lot. So I made it through that, but when when we got to the end of Veronica's Closet, Dan was working on Family Guy, and he said to me, why don't you just, like, not take another job right now? Why don't you just, like, figure out something that you just want to write? And just, like, I'm working, this was awful. You clearly need a lot of sleep, because all you did was work till 6 o'clock in the morning, come home, cry, and go back to work. So clearly it's time to get some rest. And so I did. I knew that I didn't want to do sitcom anymore, and sitcom was changing. It was very much becoming much more, Roseanne was not like a group sport. It didn't feel like you were in the forum or the Coliseum, and, wild animals are running you down. It really felt like you were trying to make great stories. Um, and then sitcom became like it was more marketing and more about commercials and less time for the actual story, and they kept chopping it up. It just was a less satisfying experience. So I sat on my couch and I literally wrote Gilmore Girls. And that's exactly what happened. I'm like, I don't want to do half hour anymore. And Suzanne Daniel, who was running the WB at the time, said to me, well, why don't you write a comedic hour for me? Which I had no idea what she was talking about, because, so I was just like, I guess it's like twice as many pages as a half hour. I guess that's the only difference. Not really sure what the parameters are, but that's what I did. I just sat on the couch for a while, and I wrote and I wrote Gilmore Girls, and then I turned it into the WB, and they shot it and put it on the air, and that's it was interesting. It was, I think we only got on the air because they really kind of weren't paying attention to us, because they had like other projects that cost a lot more money that were blowing up all over town. So they were like they were focused really on that. So by the time they turned around and Gilmore Girls was already on the air and I was already sort of doing it the way I wanted to do it, it was a little late for them to come in and go, here's our thoughts. It's sort of like the train had sort of left the station, um, which was great.
That's so great. With characters like Lorelai, I'm thinking about you just sitting there and writing these and kind of what you were talking about, your only childness of it. Did you how did the drama come in? If your background was the half hour comedies, I didn't know that you had taken, you said you had done the classes at UCLA, but everything, I mean, obviously Gilmore Girls blended the comedy and drama, as does Maisel, as does, your other projects. When did that kind of dramatic side blend in with all of your comedy?
Well, always, because don't forget Roseanne was a
Yeah,
very real
yeah.
show. Like, I keep going back to my training ground was so great
Yeah.
because and it's really important when you're a young writer, like, who are your first, what are your first experiences? Do you have will you learn bad habits that you'll have to break, or will you? I just got very, very lucky in I got handed kind of the best show on television, and it was about a real woman and a real family. And Roseanne had a very strong, distinct point of view. And it was not a show where we had to have a certain amount of jokes per page, or, it was really like, let the story go where it's going to go. And then if there's a joke there, great. If there's not a joke there, then don't put a joke there. Half the time when you've got people like Laurie Metcalf and John Goodman, they're going to find a joke anyhow. It's like you're not going to be able to
Yeah.
keep them away from a joke. So it was just I just learned, I think, early that the best comedies have drama in them, and vice versa. The best dramas have comedy in them. Like, there's a reason that Sopranos is like Sopranos. It was a lot of drama, a lot of brutality, but a lot of comedy, like a lot of laughs. And the laughs allowed you to live in that world, because without the comedy, I don't think you could have just watched the brutality of The
Yeah.
Sopranos for an hour. It would have been untenable. It wouldn't have been, you just wouldn't have been able to take it. So I think that learning that sort of like, it's the mixture that makes it good, and that makes people connect with the characters as real people, or being able to see them as real people. You need both.
When you're building, these stories, whether it be the Gilmore Girls, Maisel, Étoile, you know, I've seen a couple of your previous interviews. One of my questions for you is, you know, kind of always like in your process, do you always see the ending? Do you always see how you want the story to go, or do you kind of look at it season by season? Like, because you've had long runs of your shows. So I guess, with Gilmore Girls, I know, you left for a season, then we had a year in the life, and then you have Maisel. Did you always kind of, know Lorelai or know Midge's, path? Do you in your head, or and
Well,
then you get there, or do you kind of build it as season by season?
no, I mean, I firmly believe I would not go into a pitch on something if I didn't see multiple seasons, because then you could run into that syndrome of great pilot. What do you do now?
Yeah.
You're like, and it happens a lot. Someone will do a great pilot, and you're like, that's amazing, and then by episode 3, you're like, really, is it everybody? They spent all the money on the pilot, and now it's just a bunch of people sitting in rooms, having coffee. So like nothing's happening, and that is so. I think it's important to be able to see the longevity of it. More and more, because the television industry is trying to figure out what the television industry is. So this streaming world of doing 8 episodes, 6 episodes, like they're not looking at it in a, we need 5 years of something. And I think that's personally, that's part of the problem with TV also, is that nobody's thinking long game. Nobody is, the new shepherds at the gate are not thinking about the audience. They're
Yeah.
not thinking about, give them 5 years, give them 10 years. There's not, once in a while, like a HBO does still a little
Yeah.
bit, and if you go to Shonda Rhimes' world, like there's that, but more and more, because I remember them telling me, we think the sweet spot is 6 to 8 episodes, and I'm like, I think you're on crack. Why on earth would you only want to do 6 to 8 episodes? You have the cast, you have this wonderful world. It's like, because it just comes like, it's a dollar amount they're willing to pay, so they're not thinking about the longevity of shows, or they're not thinking about, it's been my issue with binge watching. I'm pretty much on record that I don't like binge watching, because if you really take the time to craft your show, if you throw it out in one night, it makes it feel disposable. It's like
Yeah.
it's not there for you to enjoy for a long time. We're not trying to get you to build a relationship with these characters or this world. Just watch it now, and then we'll throw you something else next week. And um, and I think that's kind of sad, because I remember the days where it was fun to like wait, for your and discuss it with your friends, and
Mhm.
like and the building up to a big episode or something like that. And I know that for the shows that we do, we wind up just packing these shows with so much story and so much stuff, because 8 episodes is just not, it's just not enough time. If you've got all these great characters that you want and you want each one of them to go on a journey, there's no space for the journey. So it's but once again, nobody gives a shit what I have to say.
That is so not
Nobody
true.
cares.
Not
It's
Nobody
true.
like,
cares what I think.
Amy,
So
you've developed these worlds. It's like Gretchen and I have talked about it in terms of like Gilmore and Maisel. I've said I've watched, I think both of the, I can't even tell you how many times I've watched Gilmore Girls.
Oh, well, it's
Both,
embarrassing.
both
Yep.
solo and then introducing it to my daughter. Now Maisel, I've watched that twice. Now I'm introducing it for the third time to my, so it's like,
I love it.
you've
I love
you've
it.
created these worlds with female protagonists, and they're so interesting, and the characterization and the strength and resilience that you build your female leads with. I've heard interviews with you talking about, Maisel, you channeled a lot with your father and your parents in that. Étoile, I'm assuming, is because of your background in dance.
Yeah.
Was there something with Gilmore that you channeled there in terms of how you build your stories?
No, I mean, Gilmore was weird, because like Gilmore Gilmore was also one of those things where when I went in to pitch Gilmore, I went in with my manager, Galvin Pallone, and I had worked really hard on like 3 other pitches, like really hard. Like I optioned an article, and I had I had pages of notes and things, and which is so not me to be that prepared for anything, because it's just not the way my brain works. But I went in there, and then like halfway through my pitch, I realized they're calling for menus because they want to order their lunch, and people are whispering like, "Do you want to split the matzo ball soup with me?" And I'm like, it's like I totally lost the room. Like the room was just bored and gone. And so I finished my long pitches, and they said, "Do you have anything else?" And I said, well, there's a thing about a mother and a daughter, and she had her when she's young, so they're more like friends than mother-daughter. And they said, "Oh, okay, we'll buy that." And so that was the days when they would buy things in the room. And then we walked out, and I turned to Gavin and I said, "I don't know what that is." Like I literally, that's what I had. I had one sentence. I pulled it out of my ass. Like I got nothing. And he goes, "Well, I suggest you go figure out, because they just bought it, so they're going to want a script." And and so my husband and I were going away that weekend, and we went to Connecticut. We'd never been to Connecticut, and it was leafing season, and the whole town was like hay rides and pumpkin patches and hot apple cider stands, and I'm like, what the fuck is this place? It's like I've never like nobody lives like this. This isn't real. And like we went to a diner called the Split Rail Diner, and there were these like people were getting their own coffee because the people were busy cooking, so people would just go up and go behind the counter and pour themselves their own coffee. And there were two girls there, and they were complaining. They're like, ugh, my mother hit a dare this morning, so I can't have the car for the weekend. And I'm like, this is bananas, this place. It's so good. So and we were staying in this inn, this like beautiful old, it was like a hospital during the Revolutionary War. And I'm like, well, what if, I don't know, what if she works at, like, literally, I said to my husband, I go, what if she works at an inn in Connecticut? And the person who was running the inn that we were staying at was French. I go, and what if a French, I mean, it was just,
Oh my
it was
God, that's
ridiculous.
crazy. We see it happening right before our
I
eyes as you're
know.
describing
Oh
it.
my gosh.
It's so nutty. And then I have a pad of paper somewhere that says the Mayflower Inn on it. And started sketching out some dialogue and some notes. And I wrote the Suki Lorelai scene where she's burned her hand on the peach sauce, and it's word for word what I put in the script. So it's sort of like it was just one of those kismet things. And because I put her in Connecticut, in this small town in Connecticut, I thought, well, obviously we're gonna want to deal with her parents. She got pregnant early. There's gonna be parent stuff. Where should they live? What's the what's the nearest big city? And we were going to see Mark Twain's house, which was in Hartford. And I said, oh, Hartford looks like a big city. What's the main? And we whatever the version of Googling back then of like, what's a big
MapQuest.
industry? Yeah, something like that in Hartford. And it was like, oh, it seems to be a
It's
lot of
insurance.
insurance companies
Hmm.
around there. And that's like how Richard ended up in insurance. I mean,
Oh
literally, it
wow.
was a weekend in the country.
Oh
The
wow.
story
That's,
told itself to you
oh my
guys.
gosh.
With your casting, I mean, you're so known for these women who become. I mean, Lauren is Lorelai,
Yeah.
and Rachel is Midge. Can you talk a little bit about that and how they came? How you landed on these actresses? And I think Lou is. We're the same thing with Étoile. I mean, when I read that Lou wasn't a dancer, that's a whole nother podcast, by the way. Um, but these women who, I mean, they become these iconic characters that you can't in your wildest dreams imagine anyone else playing. So can you talk a little bit about that process and finding these amazing actors to play these roles?
Well, it's hard. I mean, my husband says that I'm queen of writing uncastable parts because I write these parts and there's literally one, like there's
Right.
they always like you to bring in like three or four people to the net. It's like I've never done that. I've never been able to. It's always been, if we could find the one person, we're lucky. So I wrote Lorelai, and now here I need a 32-year-old, sharp, really funny, really kind of guarded girl who can do comedy and drama and carry a show like this. I mean, it was insane. It was insane. I mean, we read so many great actresses, and some would they would be great at the acting, but they weren't great at the comedy, and it was just to find the combination was really really hard, and the pace and the pattern
Yeah,
and
the
the
pace. That's
you
absolutely.
know, and they kept saying to me, Lauren was on another show. She was on a show that I forgot what it was called, but it was a TV version of a movie that had starred Christina Ricci and I can't remember the word sex in it and whatever. But they did 6 episodes, and they were sort of waiting to see if they were going to be picked up again. And kind of the feeling was that they may not be picked up, but she was still like, she was in first position to this other show. So I kept saying, I don't want to see her. I don't want to fall in love with someone I can't have. Like, I just don't, like, I just won't, I'll kill myself. So like we kept casting and casting and casting, and we literally cast every other part because again there was only one person for each part. Like, even like I drove them crazy with Kelly's part because these, again, Tony Award winning Broadway bombshells would come in, and I'd be like, no, that's not Emily. No, and they were like, they wanted to like strangle me at some point. I'm just like, well, I'll know her when she walks in the door. And then Kelly Bishop walked in the door, and I went, see, that's Emily. So there you go. But finally, we had cast just about everything else. The date was looming. We had to find a lead, and I was like, fine, fuck it, bring Lauren in. And Lauren had been on vacation and was sort of, and Lauren was also kind of like, aren't I signed to another show? Why am I auditioning? But the thing about Lauren Graham is not only is she incredibly smart and really funny and really sharp and a really good actress, she's really she's really educated, and she's very worldly, and she's got all these other qualities that just made her seem special when she walks in a room, and there's an aura of her when she walks in the room. And she walked in the room, and she sat down, and she read. First of all, she's the only one who pronounced Jack Kerouac's name correctly. So right away, I'm sort of like, all right, well, we're halfway there. I literally, I'm not kidding. Like, if the different versions of Jack Kerouac that came out of these women's, it's like, look it up, sweetheart. Seriously, there's a way to figure out how to say his name. But uh it was like 3-4 words out of her mouth, and I'm like, oh, fuck it, it's her. And then we just had to we shot it. We went and shot it, and then we had to wait, to see if her other thing was going to go, and it was a little harrowing, but it turned out good for me in the end. But it was like, there was one person. It was kind of Lauren Graham or nothing, or it wasn't going to happen. Maybe we would have found someone to shoot the pilot, but pilot wouldn't have gone on the air.
Yeah. It was you the same way with Rachel, with Midge?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that was an even harder part, weirdly, because, well, not a harder part, but a different kind of hard. It's because that had to be somebody who had to do stand up, which is a different kind of comedy than Lorelai had to do. But it had to be somebody that you could believe could become a stand-up, but wasn't a stand-up yet. So it's like, it's that sort of, so you really needed a really strong actress, like a really, really strong actress, because we saw a lot of stand-up comics for the part, and they were very polished, and they could do the jokes, but the other side was missing. And they walked in, and they were so like, oh, you're a stand-up comic. Okay, I get it. I needed someone who walked in, and it's like, oh yes, you're Queen of Zabars, and you're going to become a comic. And so it was
And no
just
one
like,
knows you're a comic yet.
yeah, it was just so hard. And it was another one where like we saw so many people, and also when you get to that level of, the lead of a show like that, a lot of actors won't read. They it's offer only. And I just flat out said, we cannot offer this to someone if they won't read. I have to know they can do it. It's too big a part. There's too many moving parts in it. I just don't feel and some girls just would not come in and read. And weirdly, like, Rachel is just the opposite. I mean, there's so many reasons Rachel's so special, but what she's just a consummate professional, and she's someone who flat out, she's had arguments with her agents to say, like, I want to read the parts that I come in and I walk away with. It's because I've read, and that way they know what I'm going to do, and I know what they're going to do. Because I don't understand, like, it's such an intimate thing when you are living in this production world. You're together hours and hours and hours and hours every single day, and especially this part. She had to be topless in a scene and be bottomless in a scene. It's like there's intimacy there. I don't understand why an actor wouldn't want to know that they could feel completely protected and comfortable with their director, and you can't do that unless you come in and you work with them and you see and you feel, oh, this is how this person, because I could give notes in a way that some actors are going to love, and then other actors are going to be like, "Fuck that! I don't," that's not the way I do it, lady. I'm very specific. I want things word perfect. You know, I that's not an option. It's not an option for me to you. There's no improvising in my stuff. There's no going off script in my stuff. So, some actors are going to love that. because then they don't have to worry about it. But it means that they're going to have to really trust in what's on the page. And some actors are going to hate that. And that is totally legit. But it means that this is not a relationship that's going to work out. So, Rachel came in, she was deathly ill of some sort of virus. I don't think she was so sick. She was so sick that like I had to wait to see her in LA because she couldn't get on a plane and fly
Oh,
because she was so plugged up. Her doctor said, you can't fly, you'll blow your eardrums out. So, uh, but it was sort of like we walked in, we worked it. And the audition was a huge amount of work. The audition was she did the wedding toast. She did the breakup scene. She did, scene with the breakdown scene at the end, the where she's drunk at the gaslight. Um, that's pages and pages and pages of material
Yeah.
that she had to prepare to come in and audition. It was a lot of fucking work. And the interesting thing about Rachel, she'd never done any comedy before. There was nothing on her resume to say this is the girl who's going to be able to lead up this comedy. But she was the only one that knew when she had to do the stand-up part to lean into the microphone.
Oh,
All the other
interesting.
all the other girls moved away from the microphone or would sort of kind of pull the microphone back or toward them. The microphone and the thing about comics is you got to go for that mic because that's your whole thing. And she was the only woman who walked up there and leaned right into that mic. And when she did that, I'm like, oh, this girl gets it.
oh my God, that's amazing.
Amy, in terms of your characters, one of the things that I think has, the way that you build your almost like the towns, obviously Stars Hollow, New York is,
Right.
you build these characters and they themselves are a character in your shows. Like I
Yeah.
remember watching Maisel for the first time, I was like, B. Altman's, like what's the hit,
Yeah.
like I know the names because, I remember it from my family or my grandparents or whatnot. But when you start putting it down like the gaslight, and you
Right.
create these and like the other day it was completely random, but I realized that the butcher in Maisel is like around the corner from my office in New York.
Uh,
And I was like I was like, oh my God, like that's cool. But it's, you create these characters and now with Etoile in terms of Lincoln Center, you know,
Yeah.
what is that like building that and making sure that the city and the history is woven into all of your stories, as well as, building Stars Hollow, obviously a Connecticut town and so forth, but everybody wants to live in Stars Hollow first.
right.
But,
Right.
they in themselves are huge characters in your shows.
Well, world having a sense of place is very important to me. I mean, with Gilmore Girls, we had like zero money, and I just walked them in a circle around the back lot of Warner Brothers, and we all, if I had the money that week to paint out the Burbank Mountains, I did, and if I didn't have the money, then there were Burbank Mountains in Connecticut. That's just sort of the way it was. But for that, the sense of place was the town and the people in the town and the way the town reacted to Lorelai and Rory, because if you just follow your character, this is a girl who left a life that she felt stifled in, that she didn't feel was the road she wanted, and she made this mistake, and got pregnant, which was not her intention, and she runs away. Well, where's she going to run to? She's not going to run to the same place. She's going to look for something that fulfilled something that she didn't have herself. She's going to look for a place that is warm, a place that is has humor, has isn't about wealth and status, and it has a lot of people looking out for each other, which is something that she didn't feel like she had when she was growing up. Now she had a different version of it because Emily and Richard in their own way were giving her that, but she was the kind of person that couldn't accept that. She didn't feel comfortable there. So sometimes if you're following your character's train of thought, it's going to tell you what the place is where they should be and how. And I remember, because money was such an issue with us, that they originally wanted us to shoot in Canada because everything was cheaper in Canada. And I said, okay, but so I guess I'm moving to Canada, right? And they're like, well, no, what are you talking about? And I said, well, you can't separate me from the show. I was writing every episode. I was like, what do you mean? I mean, if the show is in Canada, then obviously I have to be in Canada, which means I guess the writing staff has to be in Canada. And they're like, no, you'll be in LA and the show will be in Canada. And I went, oh, no, 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 no. Oh, adorable ones. Let's sit and have a talk. And it was like that. I just like, again, it was my first hour long and I don't know how I knew it, but I just knew like that is the kiss of death. If I am not there to, to really make sure that what I see in my head gets onto the screen, we're dead. And there's no point in doing all this work. So Gavin and I talked them into letting us do it on the back lot. And at the time, nobody was using the back lot. And it was kind of run down. And we're like, look, I mean, we fixed this up and this could be a market and this could be Luke Steiner. And oh, there's a church. People like churches. It was like it was just like a ridiculous day of us. And but I will say, you know, we were at a time in the industry where the head of business affairs got excited about the thought of doing it on the backlot because the backlot was just sitting there, you know, like it wasn't nobody, they weren't doing anything with it. So we got really lucky and we had to give up. We were shooting on 35 and we went to Super 16. That's how we made up the money difference. But it was completely worth it because that if we had gone to Canada, they never would have let us shoot outside as much as we did. We wouldn't have been able to do the pumpkin festivals and the Christmas festivals and all those things that became such iconic parts of Gilmore Girls because you simply couldn't go out on location and shut down huge swaths of businesses where people were, you know, actually living their daily lives. It wasn't going to work like that. So that was, you know, that taught us a real sense of like how important place is and how important it is that people fall in love with the whole part, not just like, oh, I like this character, but the whole thing. I mean, it was important. It was important down to like when we did the debutante ball. Like the debutante ball had to look big and lush and different and real and weird and white feathers and just dumb and gloves and it just had to look like that. And that carried over into Maisel because Maisel, I always felt, you know, Maisel was about a woman whose world is 6 blocks. And because of this thing that happens to her that she didn't plan, suddenly her world expands. And every year, Midge's world had to expand. It was the thing. It was like, because we always said about Midge, she'll never be as happy as she was, like just purely happy as she was when she was married to Joel and making her brisket and getting that dinner ready. And that day that we got the rabbi was the pinnacle of her life. But her life is going to be more exciting and she's going to travel and she's going to meet interesting people. So she's going to give up the security and the happiness that she had in that moment. It's going to be a different kind of happiness, a different kind of fulfillment. But to do that story, that meant her world had to bust out and you had to see like, oh, it's more than 6 blocks. Oh, it's now we're going to the Midtown. Now we're going downtown. You know, we had to know that Greenwich Village downtown was very different from the Upper West Side.
Yeah.
Very, very different. So how do you do that? You can't do that with just people sitting inside 4 walls. You have to see, you know, you have to see what the village looked like and the energy and sort of in whatever way we could recreate the energy on the street that, you know, my dad would tell me about, you know, I had these fantasies of, you know, just intellectuals and musicians and, you know, people hanging out in the village and, you know, all hours of the night and, you know, you could sleep on a bench and you'd be fine. And it's like, I'm sure it wasn't like that at all, but like in my mind, that's how it was, you know,
Yeah.
that was my idea of what the village was. And at the very beginning, that's what Midge's idea is. The village was a fun place for her to go with Joel, that he could go do this thing. Until her worlds fell apart and then she started to actually find out what the world was and what's out there. And so to do that, you had to push, push and push out. And there was no way, again, that was another one that they tried to get me to do it in LA.
Oh
And I
no.
said, I said, I said, well, how does that work? And they go, well, you do it you do the interiors and then you do like a couple of weeks of exteriors. And I'm like, no, 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 guys. It was another one where it's like, if you don't think you can afford to do the pilot in New York, you certainly are not going to be able to afford to do the series in New York. So let's just not do it.
Yeah.
If it's not going to be done right, let's not do it. I don't want to give you a half-assed version
Yeah.
of what I think Maisel is. I'm cool. Like I'll go shopping. I'll be fine. So it was, and that's the way I sort of talked him into it. There was kind of for me, there was no discussion. Now, look, you got to be ready to lose that gig. You got to be ready for them to say, hey, we're not going to pay for that. That's not the show we want, or that you got to know where your line is. You got to know, because the thing is, if you listen to them, and not that they're always wrong, just mostly, but no, I'm just kidding. I'm kidding. I'm kidding. I'm kidding. We've had some very good partners in our life, but, if you listen to them and you take a note or you make a critical change like that, that internally you just feel like, oh boy, I'm just saying they're not going to remember that the reason it didn't work is because you took their note. Like
Yeah.
they're not going to remember like, oh, we should let her do it again because we gave her a dumb note and she took it and that's why it didn't work. They're just going to go, oh, it didn't work. Okay, bye. So
Yeah.
it's sort of like that's something you kind of have to weigh, and sometimes sometimes that strategy is going to work and sometimes it's not going to work. It's called showbiz.
Yeah. Amy, with your partnership with Dan, how does that work? Do you guys like you both work together on so many shows. Has that it's like is that I guess I'm just gonna go with how does it work?
Well,
Is it work at home? Is it
Is
work
it
at work?
well, we've been doing it for so long. We have
Yeah.
sort of like a shorthand now, but it is, the thing is, it's such a big job that we actually like. There's a lot of times where we'll go into work together, but then one person's directing, one person's going to editing, one
Yeah.
person's got to look at costumes, one person's in rehearsals, one person, and so you could literally go days and it's not till we've got a martini in front of us at night that it's like, hey, what did you do today? So like, I mean, that's part of it, but we just, he gets me, he knows what I'm going for. I get him. I know what he's going for. It's just, it's kind of a great thing to have somebody in your corner whose only motive, only goal is the good of the show. And that's hard to find because even the best of partnerships, there's always going to be a little something there, a little, hey, I want someone to notice me, or a little something else. But we don't have that. We just have like, we just give a shit about the show. We don't care about anything else. And so because of that, I know that if he feels very strongly about something, I have to listen to it, and vice versa.
Yeah.
It's just but it's been
Yeah.
years.
Years together. That's beautiful,
Yeah.
though. Um, Amy, with all of the awards that you and Dan have won, and the Emmys and the accolades, do you guys see yourselves as role models or as mentors to, up and coming men and women who want to write and produce and direct and like just and fully, kind of fully own the shows that they do? Have you been in that world of mentoring, up and comers?
Well, not really. And I certainly hope that it's not the awards that people are looking at, because awards are they're a nice toy surprise. Sometimes they can make the studio network feel a little better about spending money on something, because they get to go eat a nice chicken dinner. But, awards are, it can't really, everything is its own thing. And to put things into categories and one thing's the best that year, I don't know. It's like, I've always been a little like, I love when my people get, um, noticed. I love when my DP gets an award, or uh, my production designer, because those are the people who work so hard behind the scenes, and they don't I wear the big fancy hat, and my name is on everything, but they, without them, I'm dead. So it's really nice when my people um get noticed. Tip of the hat. But it's really the work. It's got to be about the work. I would hope that, because Gilmore Girls, we never got any awards. We
Right.
never got nominated. We got jack shit for Gilmore Girls. But my legacy for better or for worse is Gilmore Girls, and I couldn't be happier about that. And I don't think a slew of awards would have made it any better than it is now. It's kind of, I will always be angry that Lauren Graham did not get something, because she, especially at the time that she was leading that show, women just weren't being given parts like this.
Yeah.
And what was on her shoulders and what she pulled off was nothing short of miraculous. And I just felt like she never got her due, which I'm sure she just loves to hear. But it's what I do try to do is, we've always had a full staff. We don't believe in not having a staff. We've always tried to train writers. We've tried to give them access to every aspect of production so that they can learn and go on and be other, and because what we're not doing right now is we're not training the next generation of writers and directors. I don't know where they're coming from. There's no training ground for them whatsoever. Streaming has killed that,
Yeah.
because you know, and I know they're tricky problems to deal with, but if you're doing 8 episodes, you get the writers for a certain amount of time. Usually, by the time the 20 weeks or whatever the amount of weeks are up, sometimes you haven't even had a table reading yet. Which means if my shows function like other shows, um, the writers wouldn't be at table reads. They wouldn't be there when they're filming. They wouldn't see any of the post production. They wouldn't learn how to work on stage or understand what the different members of the crew do, or what it's like to talk to an actor. It's very intimidating talking to an actor and having to give an actor a note, or talking to a guest director or something. Like, these are things you have to learn if you're going to run a show, and the training ground for it just simply does not exist. And that I think is a big problem. Now, we always bring our writers back, even if we just take it out of our budget.
Yeah.
It just means you shift some money around. But I just don't believe in not having my team around. But not everyone has that luxury. And not everybody, they're being encouraged more and more. We're like, why don't you just do everything, because it's
Yeah.
cheaper for the powers that be. And I God love Mike White. He's Mike White, and there's one Mike White. Like,
Yeah.
everybody's not Mike White. It's like, he's a special dude, and it works for him. But I don't actually think it. A lot of times you'll see things, and it's one person has done everything, and you feel it. It feels constricted
Yeah.
a little bit, like you didn't get that extra breathing space, or that extra bonus idea, or that extra little zhuzh that, like, you get when someone makes a joke. You're sitting in a room and someone makes a joke, and it may not make it into the script, but that joke can throw your mind into a different direction, and suddenly you're thinking about the story differently, or thinking about the character differently. And, like, that only happens around being around people. It
Yeah.
doesn't happen if you're sitting
Yeah.
alone
Yeah.
in your room,
The
sadly staring
collective.
at a
Yep.
screen. Yeah, I mean, it's some people are really wonderful about mentoring, and they take their time and they do it. I'm a very impatient person, which is part of the problem. Like, I'm very much here, just give it to me. I'll just do it. I'll just fix it, which is not how you mentor people. But
Yeah.
but I finally did find I found a really great crew that we've been together almost 10 years.
Yeah.
And when you have great people, you can kind of relax a little, because they know what you want, and they're great, and you can kind of let them do their thing and guide. And if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. And you say, you know what, guys, this isn't working. Let's do it again. But, 9 out of 10 times, it's going to work. These are your people. same things with my writers. And, I would hope that my writers then will go out when they get their own shows, they will extend the same
Yeah.
Teach the same
courtesy,
way. Mm-hmm.
because if we don't start doing that soon, I mean, there's so many problems in the industry now, and the strike just was a disaster for things in general. But if we don't really start training these people, it won't matter what corrections we make. It won't matter if they start greenlighting more projects or realizing that people do want to go to movie theaters, or that we do need more writers on staff. They're not going to be there. They're not going to be trained. They're not going to exist. You can't pull them out of thin air. And Dan and I came up old school, back in the dinosaur age. We were like staff writers and story editors and executive story editors and co-producers and producers. And I mean, we worked our way, we were at every single level. We worked our way up that ladder. So we really saw how shit worked. And by the time someone handed me a show to run, even though it was a show that was technically outside of what I came up in half hour, it was an hour show. I knew what I wanted. I knew how I wanted these stories structured. I knew how I wanted to look. So even if I couldn't say I need the so and so lens on the Schmiger phone, and if you could hang it from the fluffle matter, like even though I couldn't do that, I could say I need this to breathe. I need this to dance. She's going to go here, 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 and here. I want you to lose. It's like I can choreograph it like a dance, and then you figure out the schmuffle flatter, what hangs from the fluffelmeyer. I've got a team now that I can really work with, but it took years of building that team.
Do you find that also in front of the camera? It's like if you look at your shows, just having like Alex Borstein from Gilmore into Maisel, now you have Luke Kirby into Étoile from Lenny Bruce. Is that also something that you think about as you're developing your shows as well, especially just as a transition a little bit into Étoile?
Sometimes. I mean, we always knew that Luke Kirby, we wanted him to be the lead of Étoile. I wanted him to be number one on the call sheet. He is a leading man. He is he can do so many things, and he's just got a presence that you love and you want to follow. I wanted to give him a great big part for him to run with. I wrote, even though Alex Borstein, to this day, we still fight about this. I wrote Susie for her. Everyone who read it went, "Oh, this is Alex, right?" So I wrote it for her. Even though she's like, she made me come in audition. It's like, well, no, actually, I didn't make you come in audition. I made you come in and chemistry read with Rachel so that I could see the two of you together, so I could know, is this going to work, or how would I write it differently? And luckily, they were, I mean, immediately
Brilliant.
instant gold together.
Yeah.
But a lot of times, I don't like, I've never really been one to like. It's just never been my experience. I know a lot of people do it, like there's an actor and then they develop something around that actor. We had the idea for Étoile, and it was clear to us that Luke, we were going to tailor it to Luke, but it's I didn't have Rachel when I came up with Maisel. I just had the idea. I didn't have Lauren when I came up with Gilmore. I just had the idea. So, and sometimes that's nicer because then someone walks in the door and they surprise you. Alex Borstein, who has the foulest mouth on the face of the earth other than mine. But there is a heartbreak and a tenderness and a vulnerability about her that she walks into a room with. And you can't write something like that. That's something that the actor walks in and brings to it, and then you see it and you lean into it. If you already had the person, or if you already were so like stocked in, like it's got to be this, you don't have that ability to go, oh shit, this is something really. Charlotte Gainsbourg has never done comedy before. She's an amazing physical comedian. Her face is incredibly expressive. She kind of walks like a dude. Like everything's like she's snowboarding, and like, it's just, it was like just seeing her physicality was like, oh, I know how to write this woman. You're like, I know the thing with the taking the shoes on and putting the
Yep,
shoes off. It's
running
like,
with her shoes off all the
that
time. Yep.
her brain runs faster than her body can, and she's supposed to wear the shoes, but the shoes stop her. They slow her down. And this is a woman who just isn't going to be slowed down. Like, those are things that the actor can bring into something. And you had you had a little idea of it, but it takes it to sort of a new dimension.
With what you were saying about filming in New York with Maisel and on set with Gilmore, had that conversation already happened with Étoile, that it was going to be filming in New York and in Paris, and that was again a deal breaker, or had that been discussed even before that?
Well, Étoile is very different. I mean, Étoile, we were sort of working on Étoile earlier. They wanted something international at the time. They don't anymore. They have like, look, I'm going through it with Étoile exactly what I was talking about earlier. They do not get Étoile. Étoile is a complete and utter mystery to the powers that be. None of the people that did Maisel are doing Étoile. They're gone. All the people at Amazon who loved Maisel are gone. So these people who came in, who are running it now, you know, they like sci-fi, they like IP, they like Lord of the Rings, they don't understand this show. And that's probably, I the writing is probably on the wall for Étoile. That rhymed. It's probably not something that has longevity here. These people don't, if they don't get it, it's not a cheap show. It's like it's clearly, a show that it's in Paris, it's New York, it's dancers there, it's dancers here. So it's and it is what it is. It's not a show that you can suddenly go, you know what, we'll only be in New York, or we'll only be in Paris. It's not the point of it. The point of it is to show these two worlds and how hard the keeping the arts alive are, and that's what it is. So I mean, it's actually a miracle I even got to do Étoile at all, to be totally honest with you, because the people who would love it aren't there anymore. I think they just kind of didn't know what to do with me, and we were there, and we'd already sort of talked about doing something in Paris and New York, and in the ballet world, I think they thought they were getting center stage, and I think thought they were getting like a YA.
Something a little bit
Yeah, I
breezier.
just think, yeah. So it's sort of, that's where the business is now. But look,
It's
I got to do it. It's out there. It exists. Um,
it's stunning. It
It's
is
beautiful.
so
It's a
yeah, I'm
beautiful
really
story.
proud of it.
yeah.
I'm really proud of it, and it was very fulfilling to do. And while it's heartbreaking to think that this is probably what it is, that's showbiz, and meanwhile, that's what I say, like, it's got to be about the work. It can't be about anything else. Like, if you can't, if you have to feel like the work is so worth it, and it's so fulfilling just for that, not for an award, not for even a pickup,
For
because
the story
that
and for the
nothing is
yeah.
guaranteed. Um,
For the story and the characters, and we're
yeah,
so invested in them now and what's happening to them next.
yeah.
Yeah. Amy, we have kept you so long. You
So
have been
long.
so
Oh,
generous
I've
with your
enjoyed it.
time. Oh my gosh. But we do always love to ask. So what do you and Dan like to, what do you watch and read on your own time? Is there anything out there that you're enjoying right now that you want to share with us, whether it's a movie or a series or a book or something
Boy,
that you guys are enjoying?
well, my husband has a terrible book addiction. We're going to have to leave our house because we're literally out of space. Like, we're
You're standing
practically
up in
out
the
of shelves.
corner.
It's really, and I think we're just gonna have to leave it, lock up, and then go move and start a new house somewhere else. So, like, he's reading everything. Um, uh, so I couldn't even tell you what one thing he's reading, because he reads like 10 books at one time, plus like New Yorkers, going to, like, he's still like 10 years behind on his fucking New Yorkers. And I'm like, dude, just skip ahead, man.
Like, start
I'm like,
fresh.
yeah, it's like Hillary's not running anymore. It's time for you to like jump ahead. But like, I don't know, I just can't get him to do it. So I'll go look at my books right now because I'm packing up to, let's see. I've got my well, I'm finally getting around to the history of ancient Rome. I've got a Keith McNally book. I got my I just started a new book that I actually really love. It's Hilary Mantel. It's called A Place of Greater Safety. I found out about it from the Rest is History guys. Do you know those two crazy guys? Because their French Revolution podcast is so bonkers. Like it's kind of like I want my next comedy to be about the French Revolution because it's so insane and everyone is so ridiculous in it. It's just like that's it's I don't know, that's sort of my next thing. So like they were talking about this book, so I just bought this book. But he's bought everything in the history of the world. Desi Arnaz has a new book out we're very excited about because Desi Arnaz, basically invented sitcom.
Yeah.
Yep.
He's never gotten his due. Let's see, what are we watching? We're watching we're watching we were just finished the Paul Rubens documentary, which is
that's good.
really good if you haven't seen it. Like he's just your heart absolutely, like you just like him so much. Like it's just it's so interesting, but that's really good. I'm gonna go back and rewatch the Beatles documentary that Peter Jackson did, and if people haven't seen that, they should absolutely see that because it's fantastic to watch somebody create something like that's pretty great. Let's see. We went to see. We're going to see Ballerina this weekend. We saw Mission Impossible last weekend. We see everything. We go to the movie theaters. We see everything in the movie theaters. We do not watch screeners.
I love that.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
Awesome.
It's very important. When COVID hit, we would, and then they closed all the theaters down in New York. We would, for a while until they closed them there, we would go to Jersey. We'd go to Hoboken. And there was nothing playing. They was like they were just scraping the bottom of the barrel. Like it didn't matter. We had to go to a movie theater every weekend until they shut it down. So
Oh wow.
There's I just saw at the theater last weekend, I saw Mission Impossible 2, but there's also a little art film out called Jane Austen Wrecked My Life.
How is that?
It's sweet. It is definitely worth. I saw it like on a Sunday matinee, and and she's funny. I don't know her name that plays Agathe, but she's really funny, and it is a sweet little rom-com. Definitely worth a trip to see it. You guys probably have it a little wider than we do. Kansas City, it's just at the Art House.
Well, I'm totally gonna. I read a review for it, and I thought, I think I'm gonna like that.
Yeah, it is sweet.
Amy, I do have to ask one question on behalf of all teenagers everywhere. Is the rumor, or is it even floating in your mind to do a Gilmore Christmas or?
Oh my God, Lauren Graham, I'm gonna kill her.
She's got it out there. It's everywhere.
And I have a daughter who's 13, and she is.
Daughter, we're dying for it. Come
for
on.
it too, but like I have to ask if there's any truth or if it's floating in your mind or you're leaving it as is.
It's truly hilarious because she apparently, because we in the press, she did like some press and stuff for very sweetly for Étoile. Weirdly, I don't know why, because she's just nice and I like her. But people started asking about this Christmas movie, and I'm like, what are you talking about? And there's like, well, Lauren Graham was talking about a Christmas movie. And I finally said to Lauren, I go, what the fuck are you doing talking about a Christmas movie? I go, she goes, well, I've been talking about it for years. I go, but you never talked about it with me. Like, this is like literally the first time I'm hearing that Lauren wants to do a Christmas movie. So I don't know. Since I'm behind the curve, apparently, like everybody else.
You just have to write it, Amy. Come on.
Just write it, direct it, show run it. We got it.
It's fine.
Look, my goal is to make Lauren Graham happy for the rest of her life. So whatever she wants, I want to give her. So I don't know what that would be because I just found out that it's supposed to exist. But I don't know if she wants to do it that badly. We should talk about it.
I'd say you have leagues of women and girls everywhere who will come out for you. So
well, that is very sweet.
Always. Amy, this has been a dream come true. Thank you so much. We have just wanted to talk with you, and this has just been so much fun. Thank you.
You are very welcome. It's been a delight.
Thank you for listening to In Her Words. We hope you'll join us at womeninentertainment.com and go to our Substack for extended interviews and behind-the-scenes access.